Okay, the time is 6 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and get started. We have Francis, Giselle, Virginia, Robert, and myself here today. Do we have any oral communications?
None.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes.
I motion to approve.
Second?
Go ahead and open the voting.
Did it time you out? Did it logged you out?
I was able to vote.
That was my thing. It's a technical, it's been happening at the council too.
Okay.
Meaning we're gonna have to do a manual vote.
Okay.
Sorry, I knew it was gonna happen.
Okay, so we
I was
do
like,
raise
oh, of
hands?
course, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I'm running the meeting, it'll happen.
Okay.
So I'm apologizing. We'll just do the manual vote. So if you, do you wanna go ahead and call it and then I'll just call, so we know. Sorry, so. we
So
just-
how do we do the
So
manual?
we'll just go ahead and, you can do a manual either and then I can.
So like if you
You can
approve,
call, yeah, like you call out everybody, so you say like, member Bernal, she can vote off, so I'll do the manual, right?
got it, okay, we're all gonna be put on the spot today. Trustee Bunnell? Aye. Mayor Ball, say aye. Giselle?
Aye.
Francis?
Aye.
Okay, and it's approved 4-0.
Thank you. We can go ahead and move on to current business. We have updates for the city of Escondido presented by Robert.
Thank you, trustees. Appreciate you joining us this evening. And just to kind of reiterate a couple of things that was mentioned earlier while you were taking your tour, we are completing the last few weeks of the construction project. The construction over at the main library is expected to be completed by the middle of May. And then what we are looking at doing is having the furniture, fixtures, and equipment in by the end of May, beginning of June timeframe. There are a couple of additional items that we are working through, including some of the outside area. I also wanted to let you know that the Climatech, which is installing the solar panels in the parking lot, should be beginning by the end of the month, and that's about a 6-week process, so we should be finishing up about that time. Information on return to the library, we'll be giving that to you by the next meeting, so we will have a firm date at that time. And then just one last update for you is that at the very next council meeting on April 15th is when the city council will affirm or reaffirm the appointment of your next trustees serving.
Perfect. Do you know, or are you able to share how many applicants you received, if you're aware?
It is my understanding there was one applicant
Okay.
for the open position.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Follow-up question. So I have in my notes, were you able to put together information on the trust fund special projects?
So that's been moved to the May timeframe, or May meeting. The reason for that is in having a conversation with our management analyst, Leticia, that actually became very much more involved than what we had anticipated. So as a result, we do have to push that off. However, we are for sure coming back in May. We are finalizing a couple of things with the finance department right now. So we're just waiting for that information, and we'll be ready to present in May.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions from the board?
I have a question, Robert, and I know you told me this, but I forgot. When would we get an update on the presentation that the trustees did to the city council budget?
No, it's, I bet, I'm gonna note that too, it's coming back feedback.
I don't have a specific timeframe as to when that is. I can share with you that the primary request, which was an increase in the collections budget, is currently being considered and making its way through the process. So I am very hopeful for what that will look like.
Awesome. And thank you again, Robert, for putting us on the agenda for that city council meeting. Next, we'll move on to the commemorative library card presented by Reno.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So this agenda item was added to give the trustees the opportunity to provide input and advice as far as what you would like to see as options for a commemorative library card to celebrate our grand reopening at the main library here in downtown at 239 South Calmia. What I mocked up are two designs. These are not necessarily the designs we should use, but this is just to give you an idea of what we as staff were thinking along as far as design or concepts or subjects. So for you, I would like, one, your thoughts on these designs and also any other subjects you think might be useful, with the end goal of then presenting no more than 4, but ideally 2 to 3 designs to then go to public vote before we send them to production and then have them available in a limited edition. I'm thinking around 1,000. That's what our budget for library cards would likely allow for. We can go up to 2,000, which is usually what we order every year for new library cards. So really it's open to you all. Let me know what kind of subject areas. I would encourage the use of items from our historical collections. That's why both of these 2 examples are coming from our Pioneer Room collections. The one on my left, the black and white one, is from the etchings and art collection from Lewis Carlton Ryan, which was a local artist, and we have several of their donations here in our collections. And then the one on the right is based on a graphic design that is around the same time that the current building we just remodeled opened. So this is early 1980s artwork of that. But it's really open to whatever you might suggest. So if you have any ideas, that we can see what we can find. And then, like I said, provide, I think, no more than 4, but ideally like 2 to 3 designs for the public to vote on.
And the public would vote on that through social media? Okay.
It'll be a combination of social media, and we'll have a poll likely on the website. And then we'll combine all those to get a final tally to then decide what we think is the best option. I do encourage everybody to remind that any of the options we put out for the public vote would be designs we're happy with.
Yeah.
And did you, sorry if I missed this, did you mention the timeline of when you would want this to go out for public vote?
The public vote will likely go out before the end of the month because we'll need about a month production time. Likely this will end up going in May, depending on what we decide today.
I do like the direction of some of these older renderings, just showing the history of the library, and I also do appreciate the direction of looking at what we have in the Pioneer Room collections. So I'm good with both of these. I'll say I'm partial to the very first one. I think that is so cool of the original public library. But I do like that direction, that we're kind of giving a nod and honoring where we started and where we came from, and again, utilizing the Pioneer Room collections.
I may be off, but did the library used to have a cat?
We did used to have a cat. It was called Elsie.
I feel like that would probably win if Elsie was on one of these.
Okay.
Reno, are you looking for a third one to add?
Yeah, really, whatever you think, any subject areas you would like to see more of, or if you like the historical aspect, I can see if we can find something similar for like the cat, but really it's open for whatever you think might be something that resonates with either yourselves or the public.
I mean, I also like the first one, and I like the idea of like honoring the very first library that was here, but I'm just wondering if there's actually a picture of it instead of an etching.
There is a picture, and we could have more like a historic photograph type of approach. It's head-on, but we do have a photo of that one and also the Carnegie Library that followed it, and then also the opening of what is now the Mathis Center, which is the library that followed that one.
So I don't know what the ordering process looks like. It is partly because I can also be very indecisive. Is it possible to do small batches of like two or three options, and then folks can just like, which of these three designs would you like?
We could. I would have to see whether that is doable within a budget that we have. Most likely, what I would say is we could maybe do two options of 1,000 each, but I'd have to go back to the vendor to confirm that that's not going to inflate the budget too much. But I think that's within reason.
Got it. Because, and just correct me if I'm wrong, I think we said we would be opening this up for folks who have an existing library card to, if they wanted to opt in to
to
get
swap it.
one of the limited editions. Okay.
And I also mentioned that what typically happens is we'll also have the current card, and we usually let them choose which one they want. So do you want the standard card or do you want the special card?
Got it, okay. I like the two options presented. I also would like to see like an actual photo of it rather than an etching. But I'm comfortable with these
Okay.
two options.
So what I'm hearing is maybe try a couple photo options, see if we can get the cat in there. So I think I can certainly do a photo option and then a cat option. What I can do is email the board to see the ones we liked, at least as staff, and then before we post it online, if that works for the board.
Yeah, and then if board, can we just make sure that we all respond to Reno individually with our feedback so that he's just not waiting on us?
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, that's really all I needed.
Awesome. And then, so once you've gotten our feedback, Reno, and it's ready to go live, if you could also email us.
Yeah.
The
I'll send you the link,
or
like what our
yeah,
links
just so
are.
that we have that.
Our social media package and
Okay.
approach for it. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Next, we'll move to the statistics report. Again, this is Reno.
Yep. So for this, I just wanted to note that there's a slight changes to the report this month. So I did add a couple new fields. So I've added now new cards. So that's new cards for that month, which can be a little bit different than registered borrowers because they might not come in, but it's essentially the same. But we also added, more importantly, unique borrowers. So this means that they came in and they checked out a thing. They could have also checked out 20 things. But this is just per person what it looks like. So you can kind of tell in December, we're at about 30,000 and we're about 4,000. So a little bit less than 10 items per person. Obviously, that's not exactly how it works out, but it gives you a better idea of how many people are coming in and physically checking out something within the library. We also did something similar right below it, which is monthly unique borrowers for digital. So that way you can get an idea of that differential between physical borrows and digital borrows month to month to get an idea of the actual usage on a per person basis. Because I know the 99,000 and the 100,000, like the registered borrowers doesn't necessarily show how many people are using it in a month. That's just how many people have registered. And I did want to give you a better indication of usage per month per person. So those are going to be going forward. Again, if there's ever any data you would like me to add, just like how we split up Overdrive, Libby, and Hoopla last year, feel free to let me know either before the agenda goes out, anytime, and I'll be happy to add it. I've also, just a reminder, every once in a while there are corrections to the data, and this month I did start color coding it. So we had an adjustment to the number of volunteers back in January. It went up because we were missing some of the data at the time of that report. And then unverified, every once in a while, by the time I write these reports, there might be data that I haven't been able to double check. And so we use estimates based on prior usage. And so that's what you see in red. Otherwise, the data shows that we're consistent as far as checkouts. Any questions as far as anything I haven't talked about in the data?
I have one quick question. Thank you for adding this stuff. It's really good adds to this. New cards, is it significantly higher at the mall location than it was previously in the past at the Calmia location?
It always varies a bit month to month, based on, whether students are in school, et cetera, special events. It has increased. I would say we're averaging, as you're seeing, around 700, give or take, whereas at the main library, we're in the 550, 600-ish range. So a substantial increase, but I wouldn't say double or something as extreme. But
Yeah,
it has
that's what I was
increased.
curious about. Thank you.
Thanks, Reno. For the new cards, are these physical cards? Because I know there's also like the online only access registration that folks can do. Does that include that number, or is it just the physical cards when people come in?
I believe it includes both, but I'd have to double check.
Okay.
My instinct tells me that it looks mostly just like physical cards, but from the data set I pulled, it didn't differentiate between physical and digital, so I'd have to double check to see whether that's the case. So for next month's stats, I'll have a clear answer for you.
Okay, perfect. And then what do you refer to those other cards? Just online cards?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to the library director's report. Reno?
So this month, I didn't have much from myself, but I did want to highlight a number of great events we've had at the mall. One of the biggest one was the mall's Easter extravaganza, which, similar to our Day of the Dead and Halloween events, included activities throughout the mall. And so we had the egg hunt, and we also had crafts. And so at the library section, we had around 800 participants. So a very active event, again, highlighting the partnership between the library and the mall and how we can both work together to kind of enhance the experience of visiting. We also, I'm happy to announce that our staff member that led our bilingual story times has restarted and returned, so we now have our bilingual story times on Saturdays. So across the 3 sessions, we had 170 patrons, so around 40 patrons per session, so that's families and kids enjoying a bilingual story time and the activities that follow. We continue to have very popular teen and tween programs, again, benefiting from that demographic being at the mall. And as a reminder, I highlighted it last month, but we have had new staff. We also had a shift in staff. So if you are familiar with Amy, who has been our children's librarian, she is now going to be our teen and young adult services librarian, and we are now actively recruiting for a children's librarian. So as I mentioned before, if you know anybody, feel free to encourage them to apply. That post isn't live just yet, but you'll be seeing it soon. And again, it's through LS&S, so it'd be on our website. Adult services, 2 different but very interesting events. One, another author talk, but this one was a unique opportunity in that it was supporting entrepreneurship and sales. So not one I was familiar with, but it was the magic of selling, and it was bringing in magician and magic trick and kind of combining it with sales. These can be tricky to get people to attend, but we had almost 20 people. We had 16 attendees. So it resonated with our community as far as being interested in learning more about how this type of entrepreneurship works. We also had a very nice donation from Trader Joe's. They donated a bunch of flowers for our flower arranging 101 class, and we had 23 attendees. Again, a very good partnership with a local vendor. That would have cost us quite a bit to get those flowers, and it was a way to combining that with our community. Let's see. Number of Women's History Month events last month. One of them, of course, being a local author. We've been doing a lot of successful author talks in the past few months. And again, highlighting the talent here in Escondido and in San Diego, and showing how the library connects us with those resources. The Pioneer Room has also been working closely with our other departments, especially our literacy and adult services. And again, to celebrate Women's History Month, they also had a very nice visit and presentation from the Women's Museum of California. Again, highlighting the resources and the culture of our area and our cities. And last but not least, we had a number of outreach events. One was an in-reach. We had a Medicare 101 class presented at the mall's event space. 5 patrons attended, but they benefited from almost a one-on-one session with our presenter since it was such a small number. As I like to say, we will do a program, even if it's just one person, we treat it all the same. We want to make sure that people feel that they're getting the best experience possible when they stop by. And last but not least, I'll highlight 2 of our outreach events. We were at the California Center for the Arts, Nowruz, Persian New Year, as it's also called. There was almost 750 community members stopping by the table, and again, connecting them with our various arts and culture programs, our events, our resources, getting library cards, and also connecting with the various vendors and presenters there so that we can build out our base of cultural programs in the future. So we have a number of new leads for programs for our Nowruz celebrations in the coming years, and also thinking about partnerships for arts and crafts, both as programs and also arts being displayed in the library once we return. And the last event here highlights our endeavor to reach out to our senior living and assisted living communities in Escondido. We are making our way through reaching each of them to make sure that they understand what is available from the library, to make it easier, especially since some of the residents can't get out as easily. So bringing to them either library card renovation, renewals, materials, and figuring out ways where we can share special items like our book clubs in a bag kits, so that way they can run their own book clubs without having to visit the library. So this again highlights our efforts to extend our services to the underserved members of our communities. And those are our highlights for the month. Any questions or comments?
Definitely want to give you kudos, Reno. I always look forward to this part of the report and seeing such robust community engagement. So great job there. I had a question if for events like that youth services one that was joint with the MER shops of the Easter extravaganza, do you know what, since you've been at the mall and similar type programming like that was very joint with them and I'm sure co-marketed with them, is that like the highest attendance or what's some of the highest in participation? Because that's great. I mean, close to 1,000. I'm just curious what maybe the most well-attended or a rough average for those type of events, because I know that's different because that was the joint.
This might be one of the highest ones I can recall off the top of my head. It's similar in scale to our Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead event. These are also our most popular events when we have them at the main library. A similar one I recall is our Lion Dancer performance, which we do for Chinese New Year every year. The benefit of the mall, of course, is people will stop by even if they didn't know that the event was happening. So whereas at the library, you have to plan for it and be there, it's much more incidental and just a pleasant surprise to see, like, oh, there's a library event happening in the middle of the mall. And in this one, this was more mall-led versus, say, the Day of the Dead which we coordinated the dancers, same with the line dance, were those slightly less, and I think it's similarly, but I think the line dancer had like 500 or 600, I think it might have been 700, same with our Day of the Dead. So we definitely benefit from the extra exposure and the incidental visits, similarly to how if we had done something here, but in coordination with the Center for the Arts or with the city in downtown, but it's definitely much more visible.
That's great. And so then for my clarification, am I right to assume that that like 837 number will be included in the March reported numbers for the live in-person
Yes.
attendance as well? Okay, great. And then also just kudos on that Trader Joe's, partnership as well. So I just think all of what you are and the team are doing with community engagement and finding partners is awesome to see. So thanks.
Thank you, Reno. I think it's really great to see the increased diversity in the different type of events that we have. For the majority of the programs, at least the ones that you've highlighted, because I know this was a talking point at the City Council presentation, how many of these would you say, just like percentage-wise, came with funds from the Friends? Because I know they support a lot of the programming versus library funds.
That's a difficult question to answer in the moment, mostly because some of the Friends might contribute craft supplies for an event. We've been moving, since I've started here, we've been moving away from the Friends supporting just supplies and having that being covered by library operations, whereas now the Friends particularly fund presenter costs. So for example, in this event, we probably may have spent just a little bit on arts and crafts, but for the line dancers, we covered, and by we I mean the Friends covered, that full cost of the presenters. And that, they give us nice discounts, so it was under $1,000, which if it wasn't a library and a nonprofit, would have probably cost a lot more. But most cases, if there is a presenter that's not a library staff member, and that has been paid for by the Friends. And for everybody's just to understand, we typically try to aim for no more than, it's like $100 to $200 per event, if that is within reason. And we allow for more if it's a band, so when we were doing the concerts, or if it's a very involved presentation like the dancers, to make sure that they're getting something to compensate for transportation, for the trouble of getting to us, et cetera, et cetera. A more detailed breakdown could be prepared, but I do not have that with me right now.
Yeah, I don't think we need a detail. I just kind of wanted to see ballpark what the ratio looked like, but thank you for that. Since you brought up some art materials, with the library reopening and we have like a maker space and a teen space, I imagine the library will be in need of more supplies. Is that a cost that we're just going to try to absorb? Or have you put any thought about asking the community for donations, either leading up to or after the opening?
In most cases, we do anticipate just being able to absorb it with our current operations funds, as far as supplies and, when we're talking paper, crayons, the usual arts and crafts supplies, we can cover that. For specialty items, that might be, for example, if we're painting birdhouses, or we need to buy gingerbread houses for assembly. Things like that is where we might reach out to the Friends. But we internally review each of those program proposals, as we call them, to make sure that we're being respectful of the Friends' time and budget, and maximizing what we spend for supplies, so we're not wasteful in any way.
Got it. And is accepting donations something that whether the city would allow to consider, or you would be open to considering?
In the past, we have had calls for donations, and that can be, certain things like toilet paper rolls, or it could be cardboard boxes, and that's kind of on a program-by-program basis, and we typically will include those types of asks in the social media rollout, marketing that program. And that those types will have a longer lead time. So that way, if we do need to get those donations beforehand, we have enough time to gather. And in my experience, we usually are very successful and have a lot more surplus supplies than we typically need for those programs, because I have seen the cardboard just pile up outside of my office. And so it's rare that we do that, but it is something that we do take into account when we need to.
Got it, okay. Thank you so much, Reno. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, and we'll move on to the trustee library use report. Would anybody like to start us off?
Reno, I just, like everyone else said, the different programs that have been highlighted just recently has been amazing. And I feel like you're hitting so many different demographics with like just entrepreneurial writing, Medicare support, flower arranging, wellness, cooking, and crocheting. And that's just the ones that I could think of off the top of my head. So it's been such an amazing transition and continuing to grow programs. And it's just, I'm really, really happy with you being part of the Escondido community now. And we've seen such a huge difference in the time that you've been here. So I really appreciate you being here. I saw that we did a competition for writing stories. Are those going to be published anywhere for anyone to read?
Great question, because I also had the exact same
Okay.
question. So to clarify, that was run in partnership with our writers group. So they're the ones that judged and ran it, and we helped market and support the space use for them. Right now, they're still working on getting some of the writers' permission to have
Okay.
snippets. You might not be surprised, but some of you might be surprised that the writers are very protective of their works.
Yeah.
And so there was some anxiety about sharing the full version. So we're trying to negotiate with them, giving us at least snippets, because I had the same idea. It would be great to share the work that they did and to highlight what is a winning entry versus, first place, second, third, and then if we wanted to share the other ones, but it's really dependent on the authors at this point. And so we're trying to work with them and the authors group to give us at least something to share to highlight the quality of their work.
Yeah. Okay, great. I just thought it was amazing that we're giving people this opportunity and the encouragement to continue their writing journey. It's like the library is like supporting this complete writers group and just giving them an outlet to get their work out there. So that's amazing. I was really excited to see that. Also, I really wanted to join the crochet for beginners, but I'm so intimidated because I've never picked up a crochet. But maybe I'll join one of these days.
Awesome. I can go ahead and go next. Sean and I presented to the city council meeting, and I think that our presentation was received well by the council. And then one council member, Christian Garcia, had brought up the question about a branch location, having a small branch. So I think the city is exploring that as an option. I know the community kind of has been asking, particularly because it's been so popular at the mall. But I think from what I've heard from Reno, is a lot of the programming will be focused in the main branch. I've also been wanting to try that adult crochet. My sister went to it, and she said it was very full. So there's I think a lot of folks in there. And I've just kind of been stalking the library calendar because I feel like a lot of the events that I want to go to keep getting booked. And I don't know if it's a new feature. I think now there's like a delayed registration. And so I texted my sister right before 6 o'clock tonight, actually, because there's like a seed or a fertilizer event coming up with Lush at the end of April.
Yeah.
And it said registration opened at 6 p.m. today. So I'm like, can you make sure to register us? So I think I appreciate that, because I don't know if that feature was there before, because I would see some events far out already booked, and I was like, these people are on it.
Yes, you're correct. It is we haven't used that feature in the calendar very frequently, but as you can tell, and as you're describing, the popularity of especially the adult events, has necessitated us having some more filters to make sure people have a fair chance of registering.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So I will be attending that event later this month.
This past month was the month that my family was sick, so we didn't physically make our way into the library, but I have a lot of Libby checkouts, and I had my auto renewals for a couple of the hard copy books that I have out. I also think I got an alert about needing to renew on the digital for Libby too, so made my way kind of through all of that and just ease the process. I think that got me down a rabbit hole to the library's website as well itself. And again, great job there with all of the calendar promotion that's on there. So digitally was primarily the way that I utilized the library's services. But again, you all are doing a great job. Social media, particularly, just even given my background in area, I'm always on and viewing and appreciate what a great job you are doing to help market the library and its services.
Cool. I want to give a shout out to the Escondido student in the audience. Thank you for representing Escondido schools. I visited the mall library a couple times. Always a good experience. We took the tour of the library building today, saw the renovations and the progress there. Thank you to everyone who's working on that currently, including Robert down there. And then recently I had to travel for work, and I saw libraries from the outside in 3 different states. And Escondido looked as good as any of those. So that's all. No questions from the audience either. No.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I think that concludes our meeting. The next meeting will be May 14th at 4 o'clock. Are our appointments extended through April or May? I don't remember. Will we have the new?
You will have new people on in May.
Okay, sounds good. So this meeting is adjourned.